Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, joined as always by the tireless Phil Perry. Hey, Phil.
Let's go. Big week, TC.
Understood. Well, it's a weird week, too. The draft positioning, you have a mess of players with expiring contracts, a meaningless game, the direction of the franchise, and, of course, overarching all of it is Bill Belichick's future. Belichick speaking on WEEI to the Greg Hill Show on Tuesday morning. Here's what he had to say when asked about the speculation about his job.
Whatever success I have had, I've tried to go about my job the same way every week. Win, lose, good years, bad years, whatever they are, just each week, get ready to go for that week, do the best you can to help your team win. And after that game, move on to the next one. And at the end of the season, that's the end of the season. But on a week-to-week basis, I don't want to spend time or get caught up in, what happened 5 years ago or what's going to happen 2 years from now or, a bunch of other random stuff. So just working on the Jets.
Makes sense, Phil. He's not going to spend a lot of time hand-wringing over what's going on. He is a steady individual, but he did actually give an indication of where his head's at with this comment at the end of his call to the Greg Hill Show, which was amusing.
If I was going to do anything, I'd put it out there on, Twitter and my face so everybody could see it, but I don't.
You're saving it for the
If I don't do that, then I'll just keep it private.
So I wonder if Bill is going to be a little bit warm and a little bit fuzzy this week. It's fascinating how this is all going to unfold. What do you think the tenor of the week and tempo of the week will be like, Phil?
I think it'll be a lot more of that from Bill Belichick, right? He'll continue to get asked questions about his future and what plans he may have moving forward, but he's going to focus on the Jets. I think the fact that it's the Jets might make it even more likely that he continue to make those kinds of responses when asked those types of questions, but you're going to get the same thing. I am curious to see just personality-wise how he handles it. Is it more like the end of that call with the Greg Hill Show and smiles and everybody understands where they are right now, and so there's almost a comfort and understanding that the season doesn't extend beyond this week? Or is he as gruff as he's ever been because of the tenor of the questions that are headed his way? So I really have no idea. I really don't know, although the end of that interview I found interesting as well because he seemed relaxed for a guy with a 4-win team.
Yeah, and you wonder if that tenor, as he faces a conversation with the Kraft family and tries to explain why he should be retained, if he so desires. We don't even know that to be the case, but one presumes. What's his tenor? Does he sit down gruff and agitated and no eye contact and grunts and mumbles? Or is he more gregarious? Because he could certainly turn it on and off. And this is something I want to share with you. I found a few weeks back, and it's worth sharing now. This is Bill Belichick's resignation as head coach of the NYJ back in 2000. And this is his meeting with the media the day after the announcement had been made. And this is just the last minute of that press conference. I want you to listen to Bill and say, who is that guy?
Again, just to close it, I just want to thank everybody for their time and also the patience for coming out again, to make a relay trip out here again today. As I said, if I'll leave my numbers with with Frank and the PR department. If tomorrow you want to talk to me on whatever basis it is, I'll do the best I can to accommodate as many or whatever you want me to do. I'll do the best I can to accommodate you.
So we used that just a few weeks ago, but again, it shows, look, when Bill is in a difficult spot, an unfamiliar spot, he can turn on the charisma. He can get up that riz.
He can, and it would be him showing what everyone will tell you they see from Bill Belichick when he's away from the cameras. And you and I have experienced it too, Tom. But that is always if you really get to know Bill, he's not the way he is at press conferences all the time. So is that the guy we see? Is it the guy Robert Kraft sees whenever they have that meeting, Tom? Because I do wonder, and I know there are people that are close to Kraft who wonder, if he can turn on the humanity in that final meeting, does that sway Robert Kraft, who not only has committed to him for another year contractually, and so will be owing him money if he does plan on firing Bill Belichick. But for someone who is, I think in a good way, an emotional person whose strength might be in his humanity. And so does he flip that switch, Bill Belichick, when he steps into his boss's office about a week from today?
I think what the Patriots need to guard against is being emotional. If you've made a decision, which, you know, all indications that I was given weeks ago are that they have, that wasn't, I'm surmising, easily arrived at. The last 6 weeks since Indianapolis in Germany have featured a 2-4 team with depressing losses and a benched quarterback and stirring performances by the defense. But it should not be so tenuous a decision that just a smile and you've been a great owner to me and I want to come back should flip everything. That to me is what is distressing about the overall future of the franchise is if you can just make a decision, flip off a decision, or flip off a decision because you're uncomfortable with it, or you're afraid of the future, or the finances might be messy, or you want to have Bill back. Those aren't the right reasons to move off of that decision. And it certainly would lead one to believe, with the Patriots owning a top 3 pick most likely, and all the cap space, and the fact that even if Bill wins 9 games next year, he's still going to be 6 short of Don Shula. What are you going to do? Say goodbye then? It would seem extremely short-sighted to me if all it would take would be 45 minutes of charm to change the direction of the franchise. Right?
Completely agree. And it harkens back to, you know, the discussions we were having 2 or 3 weeks ago when, you know, NFL media reported, hey, they finished strong. You know, Bill Belichick could be back. And you look at that and say, really, is 4 weeks of work all that's required to
in meaningless games
to help you really significantly alter the course of your franchise moving forward? Because that doesn't seem like good process, you know? Whether or not Bill Belichick smiles and takes some blame and cops to some guilt for how things have gone over the course of the last 4 years, that doesn't feel like good process in terms of your business savvy and your decision making there. So I agree with you. It just it feels still highly unlikely that even if Bill Belichick handles that meeting in a certain way that would be welcomed by Kraft, that it would sway his decision. And I'm with you. If you do decide to keep him, it's not just for 1 year, because not only is the record looming probably a couple years down the road, but you're completely drastically reshaping the roster in all likelihood this offseason. And so then don't you have to give the guy 2 or 3 years after that to let it all work out? So it's not a 1 year call. It doesn't look like that to me.
And in the same way that Bill Belichick is, and the Krafts are looking at a conversation next week that could potentially result in ownership changing its mind from the decision it made way back with plenty of evidence. It would be interesting had I reported and learned weeks ago that Bill Belichick was being retained and we had spent the last 6 weeks. If Bill Belichick, for instance, if I had reported that Bill Belichick was being retained and we saw these 6 weeks go on, Giants game, Chargers game, Pittsburgh game, Kansas City game, Denver game, there's another one in there, Bills game, wouldn't we be saying, why? Why would that be that he would be coming back with all that's in front of him? So I don't know which decision would be more head scratching, to relieve or retain.
To me, it still would be to retain because of all the evidence we have. I guess the points in favor of, you know, the opposite direction is, well, look at his history. And the other one, which seems to be getting a lot of play, which is look at how hard they play for him. And that is one that I just am having a hard time wrapping my arms around, because I do think there are guys that are playing hard and have Bill Belichick in mind. No question. David Andrews, Matthew Slater, Jawan Bentley the other night, talking to me and a couple of other media people about how Bill Belichick gave him his opportunity. He's a late round pick. If not for Bill Belichick, where would he be today? And I think that's something that a lot of these guys really weigh heavily. David Andrews, for sure. Matthew Slater, 100%. It's about how they got into the league more so than it is. And this is me reading into it, but it's more so that and that big picture idea of what Bill Belichick has meant to them in their careers than it is this guy is still on top of his game, and I'm not saying that they don't feel that somewhere deep inside their souls, but it's hard to say that when they've got 4 wins and the product is what it is. And so is that what you want to be investing in if your ownership moving forward? Or do you look at it coldly? Do you look at it the way Bill Belichick would look at a decision? If a player ever came into Bill Belichick's office and he was considering cutting that, he basically made the decision that he's got to cut him. But he came in and he smiled and he admitted his faults and he said he needed to work out more and he would do it moving forward. And this is how he was going to change. Would that ever sway Bill Belichick in terms of making a decision? Of course not.
Sure. Depends how talented the player was, whether it's Jack Jones or Terry Glenn innumerable.
You think Terry Glenn walks into his office and says, Bill, I'm going to turn this thing around. He'd say, okay, you get another year.
Bill said in 2001, I've never spent more time with one individual player trying to reach him than I have with Terry Glenn. Now he's had 25 years since, but the point is Terry Glenn was impossible to reach and staying in his home and not coming to the facility.
So that's different though. That's different than having made a decision on Terry Glenn and then being moved off his spot.
That's good.
I don't know if that had happened. Maybe that did happen with Bill. Maybe Terry Glenn was just that convincing that he moved Bill off his spot.
No, that's a good point. No, he never tried
rigid.
to. I don't think Terry spent a lot of time convincing.
So that's just how I would expect.
Do you think
Kraft
that Bill will do the convincing, or do you think Bill will have kind of the same tenor that he did when he was asked and off the cuff answered with his heart and said the past 25 years? When he was asked, why do Patriots fans have reason to be optimistic? He was asked that in March by Mike Reese, and Bill said the last 25 years. I mean, that's on his heart. That's the first thing that comes out. There is a sense of loyalty that he believes, the same loyalties that are given to him by mid-round draft picks who wouldn't otherwise have had an opportunity, who feel indebted to Bill. I think that Bill expects that, whether it's, now you'll see some first round picks who feel I would have succeeded elsewhere. But when you look at the number of players, even first round picks, whether it's Logan Mankins or Devin McCourty or Rob Gronkowski, all of these guys who were overlooked, overdrafted, given opportunities, put into leadership positions and succeeded. Bill always had that. Yeah, but I saw it. No one else did. I saw that in you. That's an interesting way. And maybe in a way, Bill will look at the Krafts and say, I'm not coming in here on bended knee. Look at all I gave you. There's 6 Super Bowls, 9 Super Bowl trophies. That stupid video board. I'm changing the wind on my kickers. I mean, I'm supposed to come in here and apologize? I think it's just hard. Apologize for stinking. Apologize for Josh raiding my coaching staff. Apologize for being good so they keep hiring my players. Coaches elsewhere. What am I supposed to apologize for?
And Tom, in all honesty, I wouldn't necessarily fault him for feeling that way. I just don't think it's a good way for him to keep his job. So there's 2 competing ideas there. Is he right? Sure, he's got tons of evidence to suggest that he doesn't need to apologize for anything. And look, all the power to him. Nobody's had the success he's had in the modern game. GM and head coach. Nobody's done it. So he's not wrong based on the value of the franchise and where it was before he got here and where it is now when he goes in to talk to his boss. But if he really truly cares about staying here, he might have to, as a last resort, put on a different face and try something new.
And I wonder if that's a bridge too far. We've beaten this to a pulp the last two pods. Let's get to this. Has the team indicated that it's on the cusp of being competent, Phil, because of these narrow losses to Buffalo and Kansas City, which if you look at the score and don't look at the details, because of these wins over Denver and Pittsburgh, don't look at the details, just look at the scores. Has this team indicated it's on the cusp of being competent?
I think it's more than competent defensively. I think the question is, how far away can you be offensively and still be competent? Like you can have a defense that is better than your offense and still be a very good team, I think. You know, I think some of the best teams in football, you could make that case. As good as the Niners are offensively, their defense is damn good too. And so they're so far, though, to me, offensively, that competency is probably a one great offseason and probably two good off seasons away from being where you need it to be. And competent, Tom, isn't enough. That's not what Robert Kraft wants. Competent is nothing. Competent is lower than the baseline. You should be competing, contending. Those are the C words you should be talking about, not competency.
Yeah.
Like competency I don't think even competency would be enough for Bill Belichick to keep his job. I remember talking about it before the season began, just, hearing from different people this past offseason. There was real emotion involved in how last season ended from the top, starting at the top. And so I said on Boston Sports Tonight, and people said, "Whoa, are you serious?" I said, if they don't have a winning record, I'm not sure Bill Belichick is back. And it was like a headline on NBCSportsBoston.com the next day. That's not how I felt going in. They're obviously so far away from that right now. It's just, yeah.
There's only so long,
not so much.
There's only so long you can rattle the saber. And Robert Kraft is the one who has decided to do that. It's not the media, it's not the fans. We haven't sat there and said, "Hey, Robert, you have to make a statement about you need to make the playoffs, or you have to make a statement about you need to see drastic improvement, or you're dissatisfied with." No one, those were of his own volition. The letters to season ticket holders, no one pushed him into those things. So when you then in turn see a 4-win season after this performance, to your point, they needed to make the playoffs according to Robert. And not only did they not do that, they were like the first team eliminated.
One win at home after that letter to season ticket holders. You gave them one win and maybe two based on how the finale goes.
So all of that, it's interesting. Do you realize how close this team is to winless? I mean, people are gonna sit there and say, you know what? All those one-score games, they just won against Washington, or they just got it in the end zone against Indianapolis. If it wasn't for Mac, they could have lost on a Hail Mary to the Jets. Would have been backbreaking. 29-25, they needed a comeback from Mac Jones to beat the Bills. There's two of the wins. They needed a 56-yarder from Chad Ryland to beat Denver.
And a special team score.
And a special team score. And the win against Pittsburgh, they scooped up a fumble and scored from the 11 on a one-play drive. They're not that far from friggin' winless. So you can say, man, they might be a 9-win team here if they got they might also be winless if they get some more bad breaks for Crochet. It's insane. And it's offensive related. So and they had years to build it, literally years. They had the draft, they had free agency, and then just check this out. I did this for a story yesterday, but Patriots are 12-21 since the start of last season. They are 13-25 since the win game. 13-25 since the win in Buffalo. And I was dancing on graves after that game going, you can't get past the Patriots. Here's the breakdown of game-by-game offensive touchdowns they've had in the past 2 seasons. One time they had 5. They have not had a 4-touchdown offensive game. 3 times, just 3 times in 33 games. Excuse me, just 5 times in 33 games. 5 times. They've scored 3 touchdowns. They got to 14 points with 2 touchdowns. 14 times. And they've been held without a touchdown in 5 different games. So they have scored 0 touchdowns as often as they have scored 3 touchdowns. They have 25 touchdowns this year and 15 field goals. In 2022, they had 31 touchdowns and 32 field goals. And in 2021, with Mac Jones, they had 48 touchdowns and 36 field goals. You believe that?
No.
All right. Let's jump in a different direction. Jerod Mayo speaking with the media on a conference call, Zoom call, Tuesday morning. As we're plotting, here's what Jerod had to say about recent reports that he has rubbed others in the building the wrong way that came from Greg Bedard from Boston Sports Journal.
Yeah, honestly, I try to stay out of reading a lot of the articles and things during the year. Obviously, there are ups and downs and seasonality that kind of play a part in life and also in football. And honestly, when that report came out, my brother sent it to me. It was more hurtful than anything. I found it to be, the timing is a little bit weird in my opinion. And if that was the case, I feel like this would have been leaked sometime earlier. At the same time, I try to treat everyone the same way. And I will say this, I thought about it for a while. When people talk about rubbing people the wrong way, like obviously, like sometimes, that's part of the job of being a leader is to rub people the wrong way. And I always try to be, constructive and respectful in my feedback. And some people appreciate that transparency and some don't. But at the end of the day, if we can't rub people the wrong way, how do you expect to be the best that you can be? And I would say, anytime there's change or anything like that, like it's going to be painful. Someone's going to rub you the wrong way. At the end of the day, you have to look through all the words and really get to the substance or get to the meat and potatoes of what that person's trying to say. So it actually helped me. It kind of triggered a period of self-reflection. And I know it's recent. I think it's like a week old at this point, but it triggered an opportunity for self-reflection. And we all have blind spots, and maybe that's one of my blind spots. But at the end of the day, hopefully, whoever put that story out is man or woman enough to bring it to my attention to have a conversation.
So there were a lot of ways Jerod Mayo could have dealt with those reports, but he took them head on and challenged them. Phil, what's your reaction to that strategy?
It's anti-Belichick, isn't it? It's not what Bill would do. Bill would say something along the lines of, yeah, is that another one of those reports with no sources, right? Or no name attached to it, right? Is that one of those? So that's not what we got there. And I like it. He's honest. This is who Jerod Mayo is. He's honest. He's going to tell you how he feels. I think it's why he and his message resonates with players. He's gonna wear his heart on his sleeve to a degree. And for something like this, again, for somebody who spends a lot of time, obviously all these guys spend a lot of time together in the building. And if he's looking around and there's somebody that he works with every day that's saying something to Greg Bedard about how they don't like how he's acting and they're not willing to come to him, what does that say about that person? So he could have easily shrugged it off and said, I'm not worried about that. I'm focused on the Jets, but that's not him. That's him trying to sound like Bill Belichick. And I think if he ends up being the next head coach of the Patriots, his authenticity will be what sets him apart from other Belichick assistants who have tried their hand at head coaching elsewhere.
What this is a huge departure from too is within the organization, whether it be going back to Parcells, and I think Robert Kraft would probably be less like this, but going back to Parcells and then on through the 25 years of Belichick, it's the Machiavellian power play, angle taking. Let's say these things behind our back. Let's get these quotes out there to these reporters. Let's feed this information here. Let's get this thinking within the building shared that has gone on. And it's only been promoted in the last few years in a number of ways, which became frustrating for, quite candidly, players like Tom Brady, who was constantly left reading the tea leaves as to how, like he inferred, Brady did, how he was being treated with the demeanor of the team towards keeping him around. the amount of times he was in meetings, the things that were said. And that is a constant. And I really believe that it has only accelerated in the past few years as Bill Belichick brings back coaches who were fired elsewhere to be on the staff and be in prominent positions, who everybody, every assistant coach, every coordinator aspires to a greater lottery ticket. Being a head coach is a friggin' lottery ticket that only a few get to cash. But your chances of cashing that lottery ticket, if you've been on Bill Belichick's staff, are unbelievably increased. And a lot of guys have cashed that ticket. And then Bill has given them a place to come back to. And I think that that ability to have the potential of success and comfort for your family leads a lot of people to angle against each other and backbite. And I don't think Jerod has to be in a position where he has that same covetousness of, hey, I got to set my family up for life. He's in a pretty good spot, as he has said to us. Top 10 pick, pre-CBA. I think Jerod Mayo is very comfortable in his own skin, very comfortable with where he is in his life because of what he accomplished prior to becoming a head coach. And as a result, that might bother people that, he doesn't feel he doesn't sweat the same way we do. He feels unbothered. And as a result, there's jealousy and agitation. And it's interesting, as Mayo said, I question the timing. And the timing is obviously, given the things that Robert Kraft has said prior about Jerod Mayo being a head coaching candidate and the heir apparent, and scrutiny as to where Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are headed, it's natural to look at Jerod and go, I don't think I like that guy as much as I used to.
Well, and even a response like today's, where he's able to be so comfortable and so honest talking about it that way because he doesn't fear for his job in all likelihood. Maybe that is what rubs people the wrong way. But I think the natural follow-up to that is, well, is that a him problem or is that a you problem? If his honesty and his comfort in his own skin and his bank account, which everybody knows that he has, if that's what rubs you the wrong way, is that his fault? Or should you be looking inward? Is that reflective of some immaturity of your own that you need to wrestle with? And it wouldn't be surprising to me if that was how he's feeling about this. But again, I think it probably, the amount of time you spend with these guys and you're in the office all the freaking time and you're spending time away from your families and you're on the precipice of whether or not you need it financially, you're on the precipice of a goal that you're chasing. And he's risen at a rapid rate. And so that's another thing that probably gets people bothered, is how quickly he's climbed and how quickly he's getting head coaching interviews. But he's on the precipice of that, seemingly. And now somebody that he's spending a lot of time with is going out of their way to take shots at him. And in a very sort of hazy way, Tom. There hasn't been a lot of detail as to what rubs people the wrong way. And, I think there have even been some intimations out there reported that, even the people who are sharing this opinion of Jerod Mayo, even they're having a hard time putting their finger on it, what bothers them. Now you're getting into a whole nother realm of, I think, problematic sorts of discussions. And so, again, I think completely fair for him to handle those questions the way he did, and refreshing.
Hey, and full disclosure, if you're following this podcast, you already know that we've had a great relationship with Jerod. He was a longtime co-host on this podcast for a period of time while he was co-hosting Quick Slants with us. So we've known Jerod for a long time. We know how he thinks. And I would consider him a friend. But I've had a professional relationship, and I would think a friendship with Bill Belichick over the course of time too. From 2000 through 2017, he and I had a very good relationship. I think that I was certainly marginalized because of my stance during the Brady process. But again, when you cover a team this long, you're going to have so many relationships that you are constantly covering the team, evaluating what you know about individuals away from what the public sees, having information that comes across your desk or your phone, or just in simple interactions, and weighing, okay, how much of that is newsworthy, how much of that is indicative of what's going on with the football team. And as I speak about the football team, how is my relationship impacting the information I share? And if we talk about Jerod Mayo as head coach, I'd have sweaty palms if I was the Krafts to an extent. I'm looking at an offense that needs to full on soup to nuts fixing. And I'm not sure if Jerod right now, he has to have a coach and plan if he is elevated as head coach for what's going to happen on the offensive side of the ball. Now, if it's a triangle of authority and Bill O'Brien's doing the offense, but Gerod's the overseeing overlord, and there's a personnel person who's taking care of the draft and the scouting and Caleb Williams, et cetera, and Gerod's part of the conversations as opposed to Bill Belichick being the overseer and the major domo of the conversations, I think I'd feel more comfortable. Maybe Jerod grows into a greater role where he becomes a major domo. But all that said, I think Gerod's character is really high. And I think that it is refreshing, as you pointed out, to have him speak unblinkingly about how he felt about the reports and call into question, what they mean. Because in the end, if people today bristle about Gerod's bedside manner and addressing those, well, that's what you're going to get anyway. If you wanted something that was more politically correct and tenderized, well, then you wouldn't be dealing with the right guy. Maybe not a political animal up there is probably the best way to go.
I think all that's fair. And you're right about, if you want to question how long he's been at it, or how does he handle person? What's the staff look like around him? Because he really only has been here. I think all those are fair questions. But yes, if people are looking at him in the building and saying, well, why can't he be more like us? And you look around you and you look at how things have gone, especially lately, I'm not sure that's what's best for the football team.
All right. You've got a lot from this podcast. There's going to be a lot more coming out during the week. We're going to put a cork in it right now. Phil, you finish your report card. I'm going to get ready for Quick Slants. We'll have Devin McCourty later in the week. You got an X-Pats?
Yeah, we'll be doing next Pats. We got to talk about Michael Penix, quarterbacks, JJ McCarthy. I would love to hear your thoughts on those guys, but we'll do that another time.
Yeah, I was having a hard time embracing Penix during the game. And even as the numbers rolled up, I still was wondering, there's a lot of one-on-one throws out there that he's completing for 50 yards. Are those going to be available? All right, good enough.